Did you know that millions of people are convinced that Los Angeles and San Francisco are next to each other? Or that people really believe the Golden Gate Bridge is made of solid gold? With 840 miles of coastline and over 40 million people, California is a huge part of the map, but it's also a magnet for some of the most long-lasting myths on the planet. From bottomless lakes to secret underground cities, we are busting 50 geography facts that are totally fake. Fact 50. The Golden Gate Bridge is painted gold. It's in the name, right? Wrong. The bridge is actually painted a color called International Orange. The name Golden Gate is actually for the water the bridge crosses. The bright orange color was picked specifically to make the bridge easy to see for ships through the thick San Francisco fog. If it were really made of gold, the cost to take care of it would be a total nightmare. Instead, it takes 5,000 to 10,000 gallons of orange paint every few years. Fact 49. California has the highest and lowest points in the contiguous U.S. visible from each other. Everyone loves bragging that Mount Whitney, 14,505 feet, the tallest in the lower 48, and Badwater Basin in Death Valley, minus 282 feet, the lowest, are just 85 miles apart, the ultimate geographic extremes next door. But here's the shock. You can't see one from the other. Massive Sierra ridges and intervening peaks completely block the view, despite how close they look on a map. Tectonic forces stretch the crust, hoisting Whitney up and dropping Death Valley down, but the rugged terrain in between turns this neighbor trivia into a hidden surprise. You'll need a hike or helicopter for the full wow. Fact 48. Los Angeles and San Francisco are next-door neighbors. A lot of tourists show up in LA expecting to just pop over to the San Francisco Bridge for a quick lunch. In reality, these cities are separated by nearly 400 miles of rough land. That's a 6-hour drive on a good day, longer than the distance between New York City and Richmond, Virginia. This mistake happens because California gets squished on small maps, making the coast look way shorter than it actually is. See, the huge size of California's land is often guessed way too low by those who don't live there. Fact 47. Hollywood is a giant movie set where films shoot on the streets every day. Just like that long drive between LA and San Francisco, getting to the real heart of Hollywood takes longer than tourists expect. People often imagine Hollywood as a planned-out theme park rather than a normal neighborhood. While it is the center of the film industry, Hollywood is a busy, crowded city part of Los Angeles. Most movies are actually filmed on private lots in places like Burbank or Culver City, miles away from the Hollywood sign. The movie industry is spread across a huge area, so the movie set vibe is more of a story people tell than what the streets actually look like. Fact 46. If you think the crowded streets of Hollywood are a surprise, you'll be even more shocked to learn that the beach-only vibe of the state is also a myth. This is a very common mix-up. Deserts actually make up about a quarter of California's land. The Mojave and other deserts take up the whole bottom right part of the state. A lot of people forget about the huge, dry areas further inland. These deserts aren't just empty sands. They have plants, animals, and mountain ranges. In reality, you are just as likely to see a Joshua tree as you are a palm tree when traveling through the state's huge middle. But as hot as these deserts get, there's one spot in the valley so extreme, it defies the laws of nature. Fact 45. Death Valley is so hot that eggs fry on the sidewalk every day. While Death Valley holds the record for the hottest temperature ever recorded on Earth, at 134 degrees Fahrenheit, the frying egg trick is mostly just a story for tourists. Sidewalks rarely get hot enough to cook an egg all the way through usually. They just make a sticky, burnt mess that park workers have to clean up. The shape of the valley creates a hot oven effect where heat gets trapped by the mountains all around it. It's dangerously hot, yes, but it's not a kitchen stove every single day of the year. Fact 44. California is an island separated by a huge canal. While modern tourists are busy telling tall tales about frying eggs in the heat, early explorers were falling for an even bigger myth about the land itself. This is perhaps the oldest fake fact in history. In the 1500s and 1600s, sailors from Europe were so sure California was an island that it showed up that way on maps for over 100 years. They believed a huge water path separated it from the mainland. Even though explorers eventually walked there to prove it was connected, the myth wouldn't go away because people loved the idea of a tropical paradise. Today we know it's stuck right to the rest of the land, but the California island myth remains a famous map-making mistake that changed how people looked at early America. Fact 43. Mount Whitney is visible from anywhere in the state. As the highest peak in the lower 48 states at 14,505 feet, you'd think it would stand out everywhere. However, because of the huge mountains around it and the roundness of the earth, you can't even see it from Los Angeles or San Francisco. Whitney is hidden away behind other huge peaks, making it surprisingly hard to find unless you are standing in the valley right next to it. It's a good reminder that California isn't just tall. It's packed with mountain giants that hide each other from view. Fact 42. While those mountain giants stay hidden from view in the sky, the Earth itself leaves a warning sign of the power moving beneath our feet. Movies always show a huge, bottomless hole opening up right in the middle of downtown LA, but in real life, that's just not possible. The fault is a line where two pieces of the Earth slide past each other sideways. There is no gap for things to fall into. While you can see the fault's path from a plane because of shifted rivers and hills, it looks more like a long scar on the land rather than a giant canyon. It's a quiet, heavy pressure line, not a giant mouth in the earth. Fact 41. The Salton Sea is a pristine natural lake from ancient times. Beyond the scars left by fault lines on the land, sometimes humans create their own geographic scars by accident. Glancing at a map, this massive inland sea in the desert looks like a leftover from prehistoric oceans or a natural gem. In reality, it's a 20th century accident. In 1905, Colorado River irrigation canals burst, flooding a dry basin for 2 years and creating the lake by mistake. Now hypersaline and shrinking, it's ringed by abandoned resorts and fish bones, far from ancient or natural. California's inland sea is pure human engineering gone wild, turning desert into a surreal, post-apocalyptic landscape. Fact 40. The transverse ranges run north-south like the rest of the state. If you look at a map of California, almost every mountain range, like the Sierra Nevada or the Coast Ranges, runs north to south. It makes sense, right? But the transverse ranges are different. These mountains, including the Santa Monica and San Gabriel ranges, actually run east-west. They were twisted sideways over millions of years as the tectonic plates moved along the San Andreas Fault, which we talked about in Fact 42. It's a real twist in the state's layout that confuses anyone trying to use the mountains to find their way. Fact 39. Most of California's famous palm trees are native, and iconic LA boulevards and beach postcards scream tropical paradise, with towering palms swaying everywhere. Surprise, nearly all those tall, skinny fan palms were imported from places like Mexico and the Canary Islands in the 1900s to 1930s for landscaping glamour. Only the California fan palm is truly native, and it hides in remote desert oases with underground springs, not on sandy beaches. Fact 38. Death Valley's sand dunes are constantly shifting like a living ocean. Unlike the thirsty palms that need constant watering to stay put, the landscape in the deepest parts of the desert actually stays surprisingly still. People picture the valley as a massive, ever-moving sea of sand, where dunes march across the flats like waves, swallowing up anything in their path. But here's the real scoop. While there are stunning dunes like those at Mesquite Flat, most of Death Valley's terrain is rocky badlands and salt flats that stay put for centuries. The dunes do shift slowly with wind, maybe a few feet a year, but it's no daily makeover. Formed over thousands of years from eroded mountains, this furnace spot relies on stable geology to create its otherworldly vibe, not a sandy shuffle that resets with every breeze. Fact 37. The Cascade Range in California is a volcanic chain that's erupting constantly, like mini Hawaiis. With famous peaks like Mount Shasta looming large, folks assume the Cascades are bubbling with lava nonstop, turning the north into a fiery danger zone. Surprise, while it's part of the volatile Ring of Fire, eruptions here are rare and spaced centuries apart. The last big one at Lassen Peak was over a century ago in 1915. These mountains formed from subduction zones where ocean plates dive under the continent, building up pressure slowly. It's more Sleepy Giant than active hotspot, with hot springs and fumaroles hinting at the heat below, but no daily fireworks show. Fact 36. The border with Nevada is a straight line you can see from space. There is a myth that the state line is a perfectly straight, visible wall, or a cleared path that stands out from a satellite. In truth, the border is just an invisible line on a map. While parts of it follow a straight path, it actually has a famous kink, or a bend near Lake Tahoe. This was caused by measuring mistakes made back in the 1800s. The land at the border is much more messy and human than it looks on paper. From space, the land looks exactly the same on both sides, just dirt, trees, and mountains. Fact 35. Southern California has no rain. Water comes from secret pipes. Even if the border looks invisible from space, the weather systems that hit Southern California are impossible to miss. People think it literally never rains in Los Angeles or San Diego. While it is dry, Southern California can get hit by atmospheric rivers that drop months' worth of rain in just a few days. The secret pipes part is half true, though. You see, huge aqueducts bring water from hundreds of miles away. But the idea that there is zero local rain is a myth. When it does rain, the dry hills can easily turn into dangerous mudslides. It's a land of extremes. Months of dusty heat followed by a week of intense flooding rain. Fact 34. While the South fights the hills, the North has already leveled the playing field. If you have only seen the water of the San Francisco Bay, you might think the whole region is at sea level. But anyone who has walked a block in San Francisco knows that is a lie. The city is famous for having more than 40 hills, some so steep that the sidewalks have to be replaced with stairs. This hilly land is exactly what creates the different weather zones across the region. The hills act like walls, trapping the ocean fog in some neighborhoods, while others stay sunny. It is one of the steepest city areas in the country, far from the flat plains people imagine. And unlike the border of Nevada looking the same from both sides, you cannot find a side of the road that is the same as the other in the Bay Area. Fact 33. California has ancient bristlecone pines older than any other living things. Hidden in the White Mountains, these gnarly trees look dead but are alive, and one named Methuselah is over 4,800 years old, the oldest known non-clonal tree on Earth. They've survived ice ages, droughts, and fires in harsh high-altitude desert conditions. While redwoods steal the height fame, bristlecones win longevity by growing super slowly in nutrient-poor soil. You can visit groves with trees older than the pyramids, still producing cones. Fact 32. California has more canyons than Arizona, including a grand one. While these ancient trees have survived for thousands of years in the high mountains, other parts of the state have been carved out over eons by water and stone. Because California is so mountainous, some people claim it has its own version of the Grand Canyon that is even bigger. While California has incredible spots like Kings Canyon, which is among the deepest river canyons in North America at over 8,000 feet, it does not have nearly as many wide desert canyons as Arizona. Arizona is the Grand Canyon state for a reason. Its land is known for those deep red rock cuts. California's canyons are usually V-shaped and carved by rushing river water in the mountains, rather than the U-shaped wide basins you find in the Arizona desert. Fact 31. The Channel Islands are floating and move with ocean currents. Because they are called islands, some people have the strange idea that they are like giant rafts drifting around in the Pacific Ocean. However, the logical explanation is much more grounded. The Channel Islands are actually the highest peaks of massive underwater mountain ranges. These mountains are part of the Earth's crust and are firmly attached to the ocean floor. They don't move with the currents because they are solid rock extensions of the land beneath the sea. This misunderstanding usually comes from not realizing that the ocean has topography, just like the dry land we walk on. These islands have stayed in the same exact spot for millions of years. Because they have been separated from the main coast for so long, they have developed unique plants and animals that you won't find anywhere else on the planet. They are permanent, rocky landmarks, not floating platforms. Fact 30. Inland California is mostly empty wasteland with no cities or farms. When people fly over California, they look down at the dry hills and think nobody lives out there, but they're wrong. The Inland Empire region alone has over 4.6 million people. That's more than the entire population of many other states. This area is a huge hub for nearly everything you buy, housing some of the largest warehouses on Earth. It's not an empty wasteland, it's the backbone of the state's economy, hidden right behind the coastal mountains. Fact 29. The Pacific Coast Highway runs along perfect sandy beaches the whole way. Leaving the busy warehouses of the Inland Empire behind doesn't mean you'll find an easy drive along the coast. If you're planning a road trip on Highway 1, don't expect to see surfers out your window for all 650 miles. A huge part of the road sits on high cliffs hundreds of feet above the water. In many spots, the land is so steep that there isn't even a beach below, just sharp rocks and crashing waves. The road was actually built into the side of mountains that drop straight into the sea. It's a scary drive on narrow lanes, not a flat cruise along the sand. Fact 28. Fog in San Francisco is caused by steam from underground hot springs. Because the fog in the Bay Area is so thick and white, some tourists think it's coming from heat in the earth. In reality, this fog is caused by the ocean. When cold water from the deep sea rises to the top, it chills the air above it, making tiny water droplets. The shape of the Golden Gate acts like a tunnel that pulls this cold air into the bay. It's the same science behind the upward waterfalls in Fact 11. The land forces the weather to act in strange ways. It's not steam. It's basically just a cloud that got stuck in the city's hilly chimney. Fact 27. Lake Tahoe is so pure because it's fed only by pristine mountain snow. This crystal clear alpine lake looks untouched, but shockingly, much of its legendary clarity has faded. Visibility dropped from 100 plus feet in the 1960s to about 70 feet today due to algae from development and invasive species. It's still stunningly deep, 1,645 feet, second deepest in the US, formed by faulting that dropped a block between ridges. No underground ocean tunnels, just geology and human impact slowly clouding the blue jewel. Fact 26. The Mojave Desert is mostly barren sand dunes like in movies. If you think the clarity of Lake Tahoe is a fading treasure, the empty sands of the Mojave hide their own complex secrets. Hollywood shows endless rolling dunes, but the Mojave's signature is Joshua trees, spiky yuccas that look alien, and vast rocky plateaus, volcanic cinders, and singing sands in Kelso dunes. It's home to more biodiversity than you'd think, including rare plants blooming after rain. Covering 25,000 square miles, it's not Sahara-style emptiness. Hidden canyons, lava tubes, and ghost towns make it a surreal, underrated wonderland. Fact 25. Mono Lake is a toxic wasteland where nothing can survive due to ancient curses. This eerie, saline lake near the Sierra Nevada looks like a moonscape with its tufa towers, leading some to believe it's cursed or poisoned beyond life. In truth, it's teeming with unique ecosystems. Brine shrimp and flies thrive in the alkaline waters, supporting millions of migratory birds each year. Formed in a volcanic basin over 760,000 years old, its high salinity comes from evaporating snowmelt with no outlet, not some mystical hex. Diversion of tributaries nearly doomed it in the 20th century, but restoration efforts have turned it into a resilient, natural lab, far from barren. Fact 24. Alcatraz Island is still a working prison for the worst criminals. Tourists often look out at the Rock in San Francisco Bay and wonder if famous criminals are still locked away out there. In truth, Alcatraz closed as a prison in 1963 because it was too expensive to run. The land on the island made it a nightmare. Everything, including fresh water, had to be moved there by boat. Today, it's a national park that gets over 1.5 million visitors a year. The freezing water of the bay that made it escape-proof is still there, but now it only keeps the tourists from swimming back. Fact 23. Joshua Tree National Park is named after trees that look like Joshua from the Bible. The legends of the Rock in Fact 24 are famous, but they aren't the only stories that pioneers might have made up about the mysterious California landscape. People often say that pioneers named these plants because their arms look like a person reaching toward the sky. While it's a great story, there is no actual proof from that time. Geographically, the trees aren't even trees. They are a type of giant yucca plant. They only grow at a certain level in the Mojave Desert. Whether the name is a myth or not, these plants look like they belong on another planet. Fact 22. The Colorado River forms California's entire eastern border, acting as a natural moat. Maps make it seem like this mighty river carves a clean, watery divide along the whole edge with Arizona and Nevada. Wrong. Only the southern third follows the Colorado. The rest is a straight-line boundary drawn by surveyors in the 1800s, crossing deserts and mountains without a drop in sight. The river's path was shaped by ancient floods and tectonics, but politics dictated the border kinks. This mix of natural and artificial lines creates quirky spots where you can straddle states on dry land, debunking the moat myth entirely. Fact 21. California's sequoia groves are so ancient they predate the dinosaurs. The Colorado River's path was shaped by ancient floods, but even that history can't compete with the massive lifespan of the state's most famous trees. These massive trees inspire awe, with tales claiming they've stood since the Jurassic era, outlasting T-Rexes. Actually, while impressive, the oldest giant sequoias clock in at around 3,200 years. Remarkable, but post-dinosaur by about 66 million years. Fact 20. While the giants of the forest have survived for thousands of years, the snow on the mountains above them is much more fleeting. While the name Sierra Nevada literally means snowy range in Spanish, these mountains are not frozen forever. Most of the snow melts by late July, leaving behind bare rock and green meadows. While some small glaciers exist, they have shrunk by over 50% in the last 100 years. Unlike the perfect beach weather we talked about in Fact 49, the mountains have very clear seasons. The snow is just a seasonal visitor that gives water to the cities below. Fact 19. Earthquakes only happen in Southern California. Northern is safe. There is a common belief that the big one is only a threat to Los Angeles. That couldn't be further from the truth. Northern California is home to several major fault lines, including the Hayward and the San Andreas. One of the scariest earthquakes in history happened in San Francisco in 1906, moving the ground by as much as 21 feet in some places. The entire state sits on the Ring of Fire, a zone of heavy volcanic and earthquake activity. No matter where you are in the state, the ground beneath you is always on the move. Fact 18. The Mojave Desert has hidden oases every few miles like in cartoons. Cartoons have taught us that if you get lost in the desert, a green palm tree spot is just over the next sand dune. In the real Mojave Desert, which covers over 25,000 square miles, natural oases are actually very rare. Most of the green spots you see on a map are actually man-made towns or spots where deep wells have been drilled. Just like the Lake Tahoe myth we talked about in Fact 13, the desert's water is hidden deep underground. Fact 17. San Diego is always 75 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny, even in winter. Searching for a hidden desert oasis is nearly as difficult as finding a perfect weather report on the southern coast. San Diego is famous for having some of the best weather in the world, but the constant 75 degrees fact is a bit of a stretch. Like the San Francisco fog we mentioned in Fact 28, San Diego suffers from May gray and June gloom, where thick clouds hang over the coast for weeks. In the winter, temperatures can drop into the 40s at night. While it is warmer than most of the country, the ocean air means you'll still need a jacket. It's a mild climate, but the land means it's definitely not a perfect, unmoving reading every single day. Fact 16. Big Sur's coastline is made of solid gold cliffs. Because California is called the Golden State, many tourists think the cliffs along Big Sur are actually yellow, or even made of gold. In reality, the gold people see is just the way the sun hits the light-colored rocks during sunset. These coastal cliffs rise straight from the ocean, reaching heights of several hundred to approximately 1,000 feet. While the cliffs themselves are massive, the nearby mountains inland tower even higher, reaching heights of roughly 5,000 feet. The golden nickname actually comes from the 1848 gold rush and the yellow flowers that grow wild in the area. There isn't actually any gold in the Big Sur rocks, just some of the most expensive views on the planet. Fact 15. The Central Valley is just one endless vineyard with no other crops. People often assume that every farm in California is growing grapes for wine. While California produces nearly 90% of American wine, the Central Valley is actually a huge food basket for the whole world. This valley is over 400 miles long and grows more than 250 different crops, including almonds, tomatoes, and oranges. The reality is that California's middle is full of many different things. It's not just rows of grapes, it's a giant patchwork of almost every fruit and vegetable you can imagine. Fact 14. California's ancient bristlecone pine forests are just twisted, dead-looking trees. While the Central Valley provides a massive food basket for the world, the oldest living things in the state are tucked away where farming is impossible. Pictures of these gnarled, stripped-bark pines in the high white mountains make them seem like ghostly skeletons barely clinging to life in rocky, windswept soil above 10,000 feet. Surprise! They're the oldest living individual organisms on Earth. One tree, nicknamed Methuselah, is over 4,850 years old, predating the Egyptian pyramids by centuries. These bristlecones thrive in brutal conditions: poor soil, freezing winds, and low rainfall, forcing ultra-slow growth that makes their dense wood nearly immortal against decay and insects. While redwoods win for height and sequoias for girth, bristlecones quietly claim the crown for sheer longevity in California's remote eastern highlands. Fact 13. The Owens Valley is a lush, green paradise fed by endless underground springs. Tucked between the Sierra and Inyo Mountains, this valley gets romanticized as a verdant oasis with bubbling waters everywhere. Nope, it's one of the aridest spots in the US, a rain-shadow desert averaging just 5 inches of precipitation yearly. Early 20th century water wars diverted its rivers to Los Angeles via aqueducts, drying up Owens Lake and creating dust storms. Tectonic stretching formed this deep rift, but human engineering turned it from semi-arable to parched. Today, partial restoration brings back some wetlands, but it's no spring-fed Eden. Fact 12. The redwood forests are so dense that sunlight never reaches the ground. Many people believe that walking through a redwood forest is like stepping into a dark room. While these trees are the tallest living things on the planet, growing up to 380 feet, they don't actually block out all the light. Redwoods have gaps in their branches that allow sunbeams to filter through, creating a beautiful glowing effect. This special look is iconic, but the ground still gets enough light for things to grow. Fact 11. Yosemite National Park has waterfalls that flow upward due to strong winds. Sunlight filtering through the redwoods is a peaceful sight, but the massive granite cliffs of the High Sierra create a science trick that looks like total chaos. If you see a video of the waterfalls in Yosemite blowing toward the sky, you might think gravity has just stopped working. While it looks like the water is fighting nature, it's actually just the wind. Because the cliffs in Yosemite are so high, some over 3,000 feet tall, strong gusts of wind can catch the falling water and spray it upward before it hits the bottom. This upside-down look is a cool science thing caused by the valley's shape. It's not magic. It's just air pressure fighting against millions of gallons of water. Fact 10. The Mendocino Triple Junction is a spot where 3 continents meet, causing constant chaos. This geophysical hotspot off the north coast sounds like a dramatic convergence of landmasses, with myths of it sparking daily quakes and tsunamis. In reality, it's where 3 tectonic plates, the Pacific, North American, and Gorda, grind together, but no continents are meeting. It's all about plate boundaries shifting. This junction drives the region's uplift and faults, like the San Andreas starting here. But activity is gradual, not apocalyptic. It's a key puzzle piece in understanding California's restless geology, minus the continental collision drama. Fact 9. California's geothermal fields are bottomless pits tapping into the Earth's core. Places like the geysers in Sonoma County fuel stories of endless, core-deep energy wells that could power the world forever. Truth is, these fields draw from shallow reservoirs of steam and hot water, heated by magma chambers just a few miles down, not the planet's molten heart, 4,000 miles below. Formed in volcanic zones, they've been harnessed since the 1960s, Fact 8. The Klamath Mountains are taller than the Rockies. The heat generated by underground steam fields is powerful, yet the true height of the northern mountains is often given more credit than it deserves. In the far north, the Klamath Mountains are rugged and remote, leading some to claim they are bigger than the famous Rocky Mountains. While they are beautiful and complex, the Klamath Peaks generally top out around 9,000 feet. The Rockies, meanwhile, have over 50 peaks crossing the 14,000-foot mark. The Klamaths win for mystery and dense forest, but the Rockies still hold the crown for height. Fact 7. Northern California is an endless rainforest with constant drizzle. Many people think that once you pass San Francisco, you enter a mini Seattle where it never stops raining. In reality, Northern California has a Mediterranean climate like the rest of the state. It has distinct dry summers where it doesn't rain for months. While the Redwood Coast is damp, if you go just a few miles inland, you'll find super hot sun that looks nothing like a rainforest. Fact 6. The coastline is exactly 1,000 miles long with no inlets or bays. It's a nice round number, but it's totally fake. If you measured the California coast with a piece of string, following every bay and sharp cliff, it would be much longer than 1,000 miles. Because of how math works, the more you zoom in on the corners of places like San Francisco Bay, the longer the land becomes. It's a complex, jagged edge, not a straight ruler line. Fact 5. The Warner Mountains hide massive gold veins that rival the 1849 rush. Maps often simplify the jagged edge of the coastline, just as they hide the legends of wealth buried in the remote Northeast mountains. Remote and rugged in the Northeast, these peaks spark legends of untapped bonanzas, with prospectors claiming they're richer than the Sierra foothills ever were. Actually, while they hold some minerals from ancient volcanic activity, major gold strikes fizzled out by the early 1900s. Fact 4. Tulare Lake was a mythical ocean-sized body that vanished overnight due to earthquakes. Once the largest freshwater lake west of the Mississippi, tales say this Central Valley giant disappeared in a single seismic event, swallowed by the earth. In fact, it was a shallow, fluctuating wetland, fed by Sierra snowmelt, gradually drained over decades in the 1800s to 1900s for agriculture through canals and dams. No quake involved. Heavy rains occasionally revive it, as in 2023 floods covering thousands of acres temporarily. It's a story of human reclamation turning floodplains into farmland, not a cataclysmic sink. Fact 3. Surfing is possible on every beach, even in the north during winter. Movies show California as one giant rideable wave. In reality, much of the northern California coast is made of sharp cliffs and beaches where the water is too dangerous or the rocks are too sharp for surfing. Surfing those northern spots in the winter is usually a sure way to have a very cold, very dangerous swim. Fact 2. Death Valley is sinking daily because it's the lowest point. The freezing, dangerous waves of the north are a world away from the stable salt flats found at the state's most extreme low point. Since Badwater Basin sits at 282 feet below sea level, people assume it's a collapsing hole that gets deeper every morning. Geographically, it's a graben, a piece of land dropped between two faults. While the Earth is moving, it's not sinking like a ship. It has stayed at roughly the same height for thousands of years. It's a stable basin of salt flats, not a disappearing pit. Fact 1. California has underground rivers that connect all its lakes. A popular theory suggests that the state's lakes are all part of a giant, secret plumbing system deep underground. While California does have huge underground water storage in soil and rock, there are no real roaring rivers connecting Lake Tahoe to the Salton Sea. Each lake generally relies on its own local rain and melting snow, not a hidden underground highway. If California finally broke off and became its own island, would the world even miss us? Let us know. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to join our myth-busting community.